I was very consistent with LinkedIn and then kept on going, attended many meetups and all. And then I got my first full-time thing, that too at a US-based startup. And that was my first ever job. So, and, being able to earn in dollars was a big thing for my family as well.
How many iPhones could you buy in a month with the salary that you were making there?
Okay. I could buy like three, four a month if you're like, cloning Netflix or cloning Amazon and building all these clones. That would get you a job if you were in 2021. But now it's not the same case. I didn't think about getting into FANG or anything like that because I was like, happy working with startups and working with communities and building my own thing, maybe doing content more and then scaling my YouTube channel. I think like big tech companies and working in job is not my kind of a thing.
Today, I am thrilled to have Shruti Panjwani with us. Shruti is a 19-year-old software developer who has more than 3 years of experience. Yes, that's right. Here are some other mind-blowing facts about Shruti. Shruti was consulting with clients on web development projects before she graduated from 12th standard. Shruti decided to skip traditional college and instead moved to Bangalore. She was working for a US-based startup as a remote developer at the age of 18, which she quit after 7 months and is now working on her own projects. Shruti, did I get these facts right?
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm so excited to have you on the show today, Shruti, and talk about all of these things that are really unique to your
Yeah.
story.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, let us start with the first thing. So, you had consulting clients before you graduated from 12th standard.
Yeah.
What was your tech stack? So this is we're talking 2022 or 21, right?
21.
Okay. So what was your tech stack then, and how did you teach it to yourself?
Okay, so my tech stack was MERN tech. Previously, when I learned the basics of it, like HTML and CSS and JS, then I got into, learning about frameworks. So that was the main popular word going on back then, like MERN tech. And you have to be, if you are a full stack dev, then you have to learn MERN or something like that. So that's why I learned MERN, and it was all free through YouTube. I used to, explore a lot of the parts of the internet like YouTube and Google searches and all that. Also, like in the social media, you can find a lot of resources. So like learning yourself is not that hard if you do it the right way. And the right way is only to do it by actually practicing about it and not just by watching the videos. So that's how I taught it to myself.
How do you practice?
So basically, you watch the tutorial and then if you follow up the tutorial, that's the wrong way to do it. And I did that mistake for a lot of time that I was following and then I knew that I made this, but actually I didn't make that website. It was actually made in the YouTube and then you followed up. But the right way is to just see, like it's not like you don't have to see the YouTube videos, but see it, but also like, don't just follow up, add in your own features and be more creative. And if they are doing this by that method, try doing with the other method you can. So like that's how you practice.
Makes a
That's
lot of
amazing.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so now you've like learned the like MERN stack and you're practicing and doing side projects, right? So now like what's the next step? How did you find like your first few clients? Was it like accidentally or did you actually like go
Mhm.
out and try to find clients?
The clients like, came to me and DM'd me just because I put myself out there on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and recently on Instagram very much. So basically, putting yourself out there, documenting your journey and doing things and actually putting that out, ki I'm working on this or something like that. And that's how, that build up a lot of things that built up the whole brand. And that's how people reach out and just like reach out and say we want to work with you and we would love if you can help us with this and that. So that is how it all came by. It wasn't accidentally, but it was through putting yourself out there.
Getting inbound leads is like really difficult. So I've been working as a consultant for 2 years now, and I was managing a community of other consultants, and that is the
Mhm.
most difficult part of it. So I want to just double click on this a little bit. Give me an example of, you learning one topic, and then at what point do you decide to create a LinkedIn post out of it, and what do you write?
Mhm.
What's that?
Yeah, so back then I didn't know like what to write. I just used to write what I was learning. It's like that simple. Suppose I was learning about React hooks, and then I wrote a post about, making custom React hooks. So I wrote about it like how do you create a custom React hook, or maybe when I learn about it, the code piece that I wrote, I used to screenshot that and put that key. I learned to create a custom React hook, and that's how, like, in the start there were no likes, no comments, nothing in that. There was no engagement. But then when I upskilled myself even more and learned about more complex concepts, and whatever complex things I used to learn or someone told me about, I used to just write about it.
Nice,
So
nice.
that's how I
And
created content.
I'm curious, like at what point, like, do you remember at what point did you have the first client reach out? Because that must have been pretty special, like having somebody
Mhm.
reach out to you for a real
Yeah.
project. Like, how many followers
uh,
did you have
Yeah,
at the
like
time?
what was the post exactly?
so I had around 2K 3K followers at that time, and someone reached out in 2021, I guess around March or something. So that's when it started, and I started LinkedIn on in September 2020. So
Hmm.
September 2020 to March 2021, I had around 2K 3K followers. I reached to that level, and then someone reached out to me for consult.
And how many posts do you think you were creating like on a weekly basis during this time? Just an estimate.
I was mostly writing daily.
Wow,
So
okay,
so
very
like
consistent.
in the beginning, like when you were not getting enough engagement or something, like what kept you
Mhm.
going? Like how were you motivated to keep creating content even then?
The motivation was that I didn't even knew what I was doing. Because like someone just told me to do it and I was doing it. There was no goal that I want this much engagement or anything like that. So
Hmm.
not knowing it just kept me going.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, that's like a mindset that you can only have, I think, once, or it's very difficult to have,
Mhm.
where you're just doing it without caring for the outcomes or the goals. So
Yeah, so yeah, consistency is the answer then.
love it.
So okay, so now like despite the success, why did you feel that you had to move out to Bangalore? Like how did you decide that you wanted to move after your 12th standard?
Yeah, so even after like being here and doing things, I still felt that way because I wanted to move out somewhere. I wanted to, like, this is the city that I'm living and the city I did the schooling in. It's like a very small town.
Which city was it? Can you tell us?
It's Rajnandgaon in Chhattisgarh.
Okay.
So, so there it's very small town and it's not that much developed. So that's why I wanted to move out. And just because here, if you ask people, like even about like just coding, there are very less people who will know about it. So I wanted a kind of, exposure of my skills. So that's why I felt ki I should go out. And that really helped.
How did it
And
help
how
you?
did you decide on Bangalore?
Yeah, that's because when I was like in 11th only, I was thinking I will move out, but I didn't know the place where to move out. So I used to search about that as well. And Bangalore is the only place that I found that I will find my kind of people. So that is why I chose Bangalore. There was no other like any specific reason for that, but that was the only thing that was coming into my mind.
So my next question is like what gave you the conviction to not take the traditional route? So like everyone around you, all your school friends and other people might have been focusing on like their board exams or like getting into colleges or cracking like entrance exams, things like that. So how did you like choose this non-traditional route and then like kept going despite your marks? suffering a little bit in the 11th and 12th standard when people are so worried about those things?
Yeah. So, like before choosing my subjects in class 10th, before that in 11th, I had this in mind that I don't want to take science because I don't used to like physics. So I thought I won't take science, but so I took commerce. That was the only other option to me. And after that, I didn't had science. So as I read about it on the internet showed that you cannot do BTech engineering. It needs science and all that. You cannot also do JEE and all that stuff. So there were so many paths that were crossed in front of me that you cannot do this now. So, so that was like, and also I didn't had any interest in doing those exams because everybody does it. I wanted to do something like a different from anyone else. And the path that I chose was very different from everyone else. So,
Was it difficult
that's
to be on this like journey alone at
Mhm.
that time?
Yeah, it was alone for the first 2 years. Like before I moved to Bangalore, like even after moving to Bangalore, and for some months, it was a bit difficult because I was feeling like I am the only one working and doing things. There's no one connected whom I can talk to and do that. So
Hmm.
it was, but then like it got easier and it was fun.
And do you remember like the time when it changed? Like, was there any specific
Mhm.
thing that happened that caused things to move upward direction?
It was just my projects were going on. So there was one project I got from Denmark, and that
Mhm.
lady was building a spiritual community. So she hired me to build it all through in MERN stack, like the whole social media, you can say, social media thing
Mhm.
for the all spiritual community. So when I worked on that, I used to interact with her a lot in building that. So that was pretty interesting project, and that got me so much learnings and experience as well. So there was a point where I felt like I'm really upskilling and felt more motivated that yeah. And after that also I was very consistent with LinkedIn and then kept on going, attended many meetups and all. And then I got my
Mhm.
full-time thing. So I was very happy about it. And the first that I got a full-time thing, that too at a US-based startup. And it was my first ever job of doing so I used to only freelance. That was my first ever job. So, and being able to earn in dollars was a big thing for my family as well, because they said it's your first job, and in first job also only you're getting this, then. So yeah.
That's really, really epic. So, I have a lot of questions, but since we're talking about your first job, let's get into it. So, give us an estimate of how much you're making at it. Like, how many iPhones could you buy in a month with the salary that you were making there?
Okay. I could buy like 3, 4 a month.
I think. Okay. And now tell me the story of how you got that job.
Okay, so I went to, so basically on Twitter, I used to write a lot back then. So the founder reached out to me for a freelance project when he was starting the startup. So he reached out to me. I worked with him, and I worked with him for like $500 and did the work. And he really liked the work. It was all good. And then there was an event in Bangalore. So he came by to that event, and he told me that I'm here also. So I was like, yeah, let's meet, as he was my client. We were sitting in a lounge, and he was like, I want to give you an offer. And he told me all about the company. He told me this is the offer. It's on you if you accept it or not. So I was so we were sitting there talking, and I was very much confused. What should I do? Because it was my first job. Will I be able to manage or not?
And what were you working on? Like, what was the project and how many people were there at the team?
There were, so I was the second developer they hired. There was one
Hmm.
CTO, there was one more developer, and I was the second one they hired, and there was one founder. So we were like 4 people. So a small
And
team, but it was a
yeah,
very good learning. when you work with small teams and you have people around, it's a so good experience that you get to learn a lot of things. So basically I was doing things in Next.js and doing things in MERN, but when I got there I also learned about Prisma that people use with databases. Yeah, I learned about Postgres and like a lot of things that I didn't know, a lot of frameworks that I didn't know, and some UI libraries also. So they gave me a space to explore. So for the first month, what I only did was to explore different things, learn different things. Even though I didn't know Prisma, they told me that you have these resources, learn about it, and then we will work on it.
In hindsight, do you feel you are more productive when you're working in a team or when you're working solo?
So I think the team can be there, but I'm more productive when I work apart from the team, when I work solo. That's my thing. Like even when I work and there is someone in the room, then it's kind of irritating for me. Like I wanna be in my space. I wanna work like that. So I like working solo.
Do you not listen to any kind of music at all also while working? Do you
While
prefer like
working,
silence?
you mostly silence, but also sometimes I do listen to music.
And tell me a little more about your work setup. So let's say how like in one chunk, like do you do deep work in chunks of like huge blocks of time, like 3 hours, 4 hours?
Yeah, so basically, mostly I do like 2 hours and then a little break and then 2, 3 hours like that. So mostly like 3 hours I do and then a break and like that.
And I was looking at your Twitter and like, can you just give us a rundown of what a typical day of yours looks like? Because that is pretty amazing.
Okay, so it's nothing special. It's just that the day starts very late because I sleep late because I like to work late when everyone is sleeping in the silence. So I sleep mostly at like 3, 4 a.m. and then I get up at 11 or 12 like that. And then like 1 hour I give myself. After that I start working. And it's mostly like working and then taking break and then working and taking break. And then during the night I'm with my family or with friends like that. And then again after in the night I take a sprint for like 3 hours or something. That's how it just looks like. Even on the weekends it's mostly the same because I like to work.
Right. Right. And you're also big on working out, right? You hit the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, I also hit the gym. So every day at 8 p.m. I hit the gym. And so it's mostly home workout or the gym. So like it depends where I am. But yeah, I hit the gym for an hour and then I have my dinner and the day continues.
Hmm. So does it like ever feel monotonous, or do you feel like it's what you like to do and this is how you prefer it?
Mhm. So it is what I like to do, and that's why I like doing it. But sometimes I feel I should, go out more. And like I like to take vacations as well and travel and all that. So last year only I traveled to Spiti. After I quit my job, I went to Spiti for a week
Very cool.
and spent time together.
A perfect way to unwind after a hectic job and
Yeah. All that. So yeah, I do take a lot of breaks as well, like that.
like it. And I also saw that you're also a part of a lot of clubhouses and co-living hacking spaces in Bangalore. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's basically you can say a Web3 villa that is exclusive towards the people who have the NFT. So it's called Zo World. And so it's basically a luxurious Web3 space where people live. They stay there. They have 24/7 chefs and all that. They have laundry and all of this stuff. So once you have their NFT, you are you're able to go there and stay there. So I actually got a flat in Bangalore in Feb last year. So after that, I terminated the agreement after 2 months. And then I came back home and then I went back. So I was staying at Zoworld. And from then, whenever I go to Bangalore, I stay there.
So you stay at Zoo World, did you say?
Yeah.
Right. And what is that like? Like, is it better than living in a flat? It must be, right?
Yeah, it is. It is much better because you have the like-minded people all living together. So it's a good experience.
And tell me about quitting your job. So after what happened after you quit the job? So how did you navigate what to do next?
So in the first 2 weeks, I was just exploring Spiti and then watching series. I was doing nothing. And then I felt now I should do something. I have to do something because I need to get back again. So I started again with the Web3 communities, diving into that and learning about it. And then in June, I guess, I went to a hacker hostel basically. So everyone was living there for 2 weeks and hacking on their project. So I contributed to a project in Web3 there as a front end and the front end part of it because I still didn't know back end. So the back end of Web3, the smart contract and stuff. So I was hanging there. It was a pretty good experience being in the community. I got a lot of perks as well. So then I became a member of that community. Like it's SuperteamDAO. So I became a member of that. And after that, I've been attending their events as well. I've got some really good friendships in there. So most of the people are like my friends, like good friends. So yeah, that was the experience. And I just kept upskilling and then was working with some grant projects in the community, helping them with some stuff. So that was happening. Then I started with this project that I was doing, that I'm doing right now, the current project that I'm doing with my friend. So basically, he is into the marketing and distribution side of things, and I'm into the tech side of things. So we both actually collaborated on that project to, do some things together. So that's been going on pretty well. We started last July, I guess, and like we started with just a newsletter, and it has reached to 18K subs now. And after that we are focusing on building the product. So that's been going on really crazy.
That is crazy.
I just quickly wanted to also ask, like, what are some of your favorite communities that you're a part of?
Okay, so
Web3 or otherwise.
It's SuperteamDAO, which is a great community of mostly Solana devs. And there is HerDAO, which is a community of women in tech, basically. That is there, and there's the Phoenix Guild of again, it's also women in tech, and there is, I don't remember the name, but there's a traveling community of people, and I like that too. I don't actually remember the name of it, but yeah, these are the communities. There is Blue Learn of people in college mostly. So it will actually help beginners who are starting out. So yeah, these are the communities.
Right.
And what got you into Web3 and what makes you excited about being in this space?
It's only about like Twitter thing. Like whenever I used to, scroll through Twitter, I used to see a lot of people doing Web3 and not just that I thought it was cool, but also I wanted to upskill in that sense as well because I used to really like the technology. So that's why I, started through the Web3 and got into it. It was only through exploring in Twitter.
And tell me a little bit about the project that you're building right now. So what are you building and who is the audience?
Yeah, so we are building Coinbasics, which is your go-to source for anything in Web3, basically helping people navigate the ever-evolving world of Web3. And so it's like in terms of development, if you talk about, there are so many communities like Alchemy and Developer DAO and all of that. They have courses for developers for becoming a Web3 dev from like Web2 to Web3 and all that. But there are very less guides on investing, crypto investing, and doing trading. And there are a lot of gaps that we are trying to fulfill, not just the development side but more towards the investment and trading side. So I don't actually have much expertise in it, but the person I'm working with, he has that. So we are basically collaborating, and it has like in the front end, it's just like we have social content, we have newsletter, and we have a podcast. But in the back end, the main product that I'm like leading the tech side of it is that we have an alpha product where you get the research and insights of different projects, and then there is another product where we are doing an academy kind of thing where you learn and then basically learn to one kind of concept where you learn, and while learning you also earn, like that. So we are bringing that with cohorts and everything. And after that, we have an on-chain analytics platform. So basically, if you know about Bloomberg Terminal, that is for financial markets. Like you read the financial data of companies, but we are doing the same thing for Web3, like a terminal where you can see, every data of each company and the metrics of the projects that are built under that. So it would be very helpful for, investors. So we are bringing all of that.
Nice. Sounds really exciting. So now I want to jump to a new segment where it'll basically be advice for the listeners that they can directly apply into their own lives. So the
Sure.
first question I have for you is, so you must have friends who now, like you must have made friends who have gone to college and who are now working as a developer. Seeing their life and comparing it with yours, do you see any pros of going to college?
Okay, so I don't actually regret the decision because I feel it's about the people you are around. And if I were in college, there was a different crowd. And if I am in this space, there's a different crowd around me. So I feel that actually matters, and that is the factor here. So that's why I don't regret it, because I see people that are around me.
No, I'm not talking about you regretting. I'm talking about, would you say that it's useless going to college, and would you say that other people, like, would you advocate for your path? Like, other people should also try to do, like, if they want to get into programming, then they should just do it after 12 standard.
Yeah, so it's not like you should. So I chose distance college and not going offline college because I was already I was seeing that growth in me. So if someone who is planning to start learning to code and after 12th and planning in a different way and later after it, so I think I won't actually recommend to skip college because you're not in that path. So if you see growth, then only you should, if you're in college, then only you should quit. And yeah, and that would be the sense behind it.
Right, good advice. Okay, next question. So if a friend from your school days asks you for being their mentor and helping them break into a coding career, how would you be their mentor? Like, what are the first pieces of advice you would give them?
Yes, I have done this to many people in my school.
Nice.
Yeah, so
People
I
who are
just,
now in IITs and
yeah. So I just, give them a basic roadmap at first, like this is all of that is done. If you want to do a web dev, then this is it. If you want to do game dev, then this. And if you want to, go into app development, then this is it. So I gave them like these three paths. And then I gave them like a, free code camp channel, like find the videos here. You'll get it very easily and then learn from it. And then if something comes up, then I would be here like that.
But what about like, so obviously you said that just doing the courses and videos is not enough. You also have to build and do something with it. So what's your advice on the aspect of building a portfolio that can actually get you a job?
Yeah, so in that sense, I already wrote a LinkedIn post about it. That if you are building just a simple application, and if you're like cloning Netflix or cloning Amazon, and building all these clones, that would get you a job if you were in 2021. But now it's not the same case. You have to have a different criteria of eligibility for a job, because right now this basic things AI has taken over, like the basic jobs like doing HTML, CSS, and JS. So nobody's gonna hire you that way. If you have built the clone, then also nobody is getting impressed by it because so many people have it. So you have to stand out and impress the other person. So impress the other person that you can build things, and like showing the creativity. So right now what works is doing something like doing building great features. It's about the features that actually tells people about what you can do, like that. So I think if you're creating an application, then add another feature, then think creatively, then add another feature. So when you create some things with that mind, like you to show the creativity, that's when the portfolio becomes more powerful, and there is a higher chances of getting hired.
Hmm. And do you also recommend your like for the people who you have already mentored, like do you also tell them to create content on LinkedIn and elsewhere?
Yeah, if you are planning to play long term, then definitely you should create content. Yeah,
And any advice for when they ask you that, hey, nobody is just liking my content, what do I do?
that's just the start. So if you just be consistent, that's gonna blow away some time. I think just giving it time.
That's wow, that's actually like motivating me to start creating content.
You should.
I will
Amazing.
for
Okay.
sure.
Mhm.
So, final question from my notes. You said, I saw one of your Instagram videos and really like what you said in there, which is the more you fuck around, the more you figure out. I love this
Yeah.
quote. This is like, I don't know, feel like it's taken from a book, but yeah. So, did you have uh like any doubts regarding the unique path that you've chosen that made you reconsider and think maybe, I should maybe go to some university somewhere or, choose a more normal route?
No, I guess what has been since the start of the journey, it's going pretty good, and I would not like to change anything in between, but I would like to just you know give myself more time to upskill now. There were times where I was feeling very behind, where I was not updated with the technologies, and neither I was, giving it time to learn because of the job going on and all of that. So I was feeling kind of behind, where I felt a lot of times that I should quit. This is the only thing that, keeps me going, feeling behind and then getting motivated by it and then working on it.
Yeah, I remember seeing one of your posts on Twitter where you mentioned that you were in a constant state of anxiety about what to do next in your coding career, and how did you deal with that, and does that come up even today?
Mhm. So it's just, motivating myself by seeing other people. Like this person is doing this and they are building this and they got this grant or basically doing this stuff.
I
Go
just
ahead.
have one off-topic question. Like, did you ever like have so once you entered like the tech space and then like Bangalore, like everybody
Mhm.
like there's like a huge portion of people there who are like crazy about like big tech companies going into Google and like other yeah. So
Mhm.
so like did you ever have those aspirations? Like did you ever think that you also want to get into Google or Uber or Facebook and work
No,
towards that?
I didn't think about getting into FANG or anything like that. because I was like, happy working with startups and working with communities and building my own thing, maybe doing content more and then scaling my YouTube channel. I think like big tech companies and working in job is not my kind of a thing. So I just never thought about getting in that path.
Wow, you realize that like before even like working there, like way quicker. So I was working at a big tech and I was miserable there. So yeah.
Yeah. So there was one YouTube channel, they did a podcast with me and they wrote the title of the video to make it catchy, and it was like a 19-year-old earns more than Fang. So
Yeah, but that's true. I think we should title this video the same, Nitesh. It'll get more views then.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think we will need to take some inspiration from that title. Yes. All right, Shruti. That's all the questions that we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been such a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Same, yeah. Thanks for having me.
What do you think about this interview?
I think it is great. I just can't believe that she's only 19 and she's done so much already, like exploring Web3. Yeah, it's amazing to see
It's crazy.
somebody, and the way she was talking about how she works and has these 3 hours sprints at night. Yeah, that really inspired me to do one of those. And it's also incredible to see that she has so much clarity in terms of how she does not want to work at like big companies. She already knows that. So many people figure that out in the late 30s, 40s. What do you think?
I've been really excited about doing this interview for the last, I think, 24 hours. And it's really crazy to me that she was able to find like all the niche things that people recommend all everywhere around. So like writing on the internet, learning by doing projects, and all of these things that mostly people stumble upon or make mistakes and learn about them in their 20s, or maybe sometimes even not in their 20s. If I ever see a person in class 11 or 12 again, I will send them to this interview and tell them that you need to start learning programming in your 11 and 12, and then maybe instead of going to college, you can buy 4 iPhones a month.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool episode, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think
loved
our
it.
listeners will be inspired.
Yeah, I think so. I'll be following her on Twitter and on LinkedIn to see where she goes.